You can sanction a country. You can restrict its access to technology. You can tell companies they can't sell it the machines it needs to build advanced chips. But there's one thing you can't sanction: the incentive to find another way. That may be the most interesting part of the China story right now. When the United States and its allies began restricting China's access to advanced semiconductor technology, the objective was straightforward: slow China's progress in the technologies that could give it an economic and military edge. And the restrictions have imposed real costs. China still can't freely access some of the world's most advanced chip-making equipment. Its semiconductor industry still has serious gaps. So this isn't a story about sanctions simply failing. It's more complicated than that. The pressure changed the question China was asking. Before the restrictions, the question was often, why build this ourselves if we can buy something better? After the restrictions, it became, what happens if we can never buy it again? That's a completely different calculation. And once something becomes a strategic vulnerability, money starts moving to eliminate it. Look at semiconductor equipment. A 2026 analysis from the Center for Strategic and International Studies found that US and allied controls have accelerated China's long-running push for semiconductor self-reliance, particularly by encouraging Chinese manufacturers to adopt domestic equipment. Reuters reported something even more revealing in December 2025. Chinese authorities were requiring chipmakers seeking approval for new capacity to show that at least half of their semiconductor equipment would be sourced domestically. Reuters also reported that Beijing wanted to push domestic sourcing much further over time. Think about that. A restriction designed to exploit China's dependence on foreign technology has created a powerful incentive to reduce that dependence altogether. That's the paradox. But chips are only one part of the story. China spent years building enormous capabilities in batteries, solar manufacturing, electric vehicles, and industrial supply chains. Those industries weren't created by sanctions, but external pressure makes something that was already valuable even more strategic: control of the supply chain. Here's where the story gets bigger than China. Imagine you're a Chinese company deciding whether to invest $1 billion in a domestic technology. Under normal circumstances, the foreign alternative is cheaper, better, and already proven. You buy it. Now imagine that foreign supplier could disappear from your market tomorrow because of a policy decision made thousands of miles away. Suddenly, the expensive domestic alternative looks different. It isn't just a product anymore. It's insurance. When millions of companies make variations of that same decision, you don't just get individual substitutes. You get an ecosystem. Suppliers appear, engineers move, factories scale, capital follows demand. And something that started as a workaround can become a competitive industry in its own right. So the phrase "sanctions backfired" needs to be handled carefully. Sanctions haven't made China universally stronger. They haven't eliminated its dependence on foreign technology, and they certainly haven't solved every problem in the Chinese economy. But they may have accelerated something Beijing was already trying to do: turn technological dependence into technological self-reliance. Huawei is the clearest example. It didn't choose to become a symbol of self-reliance. The pressure pushed it there. The company lost access to critical foreign technologies, so it invested heavily in alternatives. Today, Huawei is part of a much broader Chinese effort to build domestic semiconductor and AI capabilities. The restriction didn't remove the demand for the technology. It strengthened the incentive to reproduce it, which raises the question investors should actually be asking. What happens when the world's second largest economy stops treating foreign technology as an assumption and starts treating it as a risk? That's when industrial policy becomes genuinely powerful. You don't have to convince every company that domestic technology is better, only that foreign technology is no longer guaranteed. Then the economics change on their own. There's a bigger consequence underneath all of this. The world used to run on a simple assumption. Countries specialize, companies buy the best components wherever they're made, and capital flows toward efficiency. National security has started rewriting that. The cheapest supplier is no longer automatically the preferred one. The real question has become, can I still get this 5 years from now? That changes where factories get built, where capital goes, which technologies get government support, and which companies become strategically important. We're already seeing the result. The US is trying to rebuild domestic chip capacity. China is trying to cut its dependence on foreign technology. Europe is trying to secure strategic supply chains. Japan and South Korea are protecting critical manufacturing. The global economy isn't necessarily de-globalizing. It may be rebuilding globalization around resilience instead of pure efficiency. And here's the part that could matter most. If China succeeds at building domestic alternatives at real scale, those technologies won't necessarily stay inside China. Chinese companies already compete globally in EVs, batteries, and solar. China's vehicle exports surged sharply in 2026, even as its domestic market weakened, making overseas markets increasingly important to Chinese automakers. So the question isn't simply whether China can replace what the West stops selling. It's whether China eventually builds alternatives that other countries want to buy. That's where today's sanctions could have consequences far beyond their original target. Because the goal of an export control is to deny a capability, but the response can be to create a new supplier. And once that supplier exists, it goes looking for customers. That's not guaranteed. It won't happen in every technology, and China still faces real technical and economic constraints. But the direction is worth watching. The next phase of this competition may not be about who can deny the other side access to technology. It may be about who can build an alternative ecosystem fast enough that access stops mattering. If that happens, the West may discover something uncomfortable. You can control the supply of a technology without controlling the demand for it. And when demand stays enormous, someone eventually tries to fill the gap. That's the deeper story behind China's rise in strategic industries. Not that sanctions made China powerful. China was already powerful. Not that sanctions failed. They didn't. But pressure changes incentives. And sometimes the strongest incentive to become self-reliant is realizing that someone else can switch you off. So the question worth watching isn't, did sanctions work? It's, what did sanctions teach China it could no longer afford to depend on? Because the answer may tell us what the next decade of global technology competition actually looks like. If you're serious about understanding where technology, capital, and geopolitical power are headed, subscribe to NextGen Wealth Insights. Here, we don't follow headlines. We decode the systems, incentives, and power shifts shaping tomorrow's world, and what they could change next.